Peace and high frequencies, everyone. Black Fit Witch Dream Oracle is here. I'm hoping my car mount stays mounted. It's been falling off and lifting off here and there, so I hope it stays down while I'm talking to y'all. I don't know. I have to go get another one today. But anyway, I wanted to go into a sharing in regards to something that is not a topic that a lot of people talk about. But when I was listening to Big Sis video, Velvet Ma'at, when I was listening to her video and she was talking about how this lady, I can't even remember her name, but this lady, how she was exemplifying characteristics of a mother that's jealous of her daughter, and how it was coming off with that type of energy. And I felt that. It's like when she started to go into it, talking about, different ways she was tearing this other young lady down, I was like, yeah, it's coming. It was giving that type of energy, and I resonate with that type of energy. And so I woke up this morning, I was thinking about that because I grew up in a similar environment with my mother, and for a lot of women, that may not be, we always hear about, the Happy Mother's Day and everything that people do for their mothers, and they love their mothers, and their mother, coddles them and loves them and does all these beautiful things, and they have a wonderful relationship. But we don't talk about the mothers who don't do that and you don't have a good relationship with. And everybody doesn't have a good relationship with their mother, right? And the best relationship I've had with my mother is now that she has transitioned. Connecting with my mother in the spiritual realm and the astral plane has been the best connection I've ever had with my mother. And for some of us, we don't really see the extreme trauma on our feminine energy that has occurred while we're in it. Okay, because we're in it. We'll just say, hey, that's just my mama. That's just how she is. Woo, 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 whatever. Or I just don't fool with her. I don't fool with my mama, And this can go for men too. Be like, I don't deal with my mama like that. I love my mama, but I don't deal with her. And why is that? What happened to that matriarchal energy that's supposed to be that nurturing, safe space that didn't occur? All right, so again, I like to give myself as an example because I don't know anybody else's life. So giving myself an example, there was rarely, if any, times I can recall my mother complimenting me. There was rarely, if any, times my mother would tell me she was proud of me or she thought I did good. It was always do better. It was always you could do better. Or it was always you need to be more like her godchild. Like she would always talk about my god sister, and she would tell me and my sister how she did this and she did that, and we need to be like this and we need to be like that. Like it never was any words of praise, right? That were good enough. And so I sat with that this morning because I started to think about some of the movements that I used to do in the past that I had to grow out of and I had to mature out of because I didn't know this was what I was doing, and it was showing itself out in relationships of me really acting as if I'm not good enough and accepting a lot of things. And so even in relationships, we will accept someone who's lesser than way lesser than who we are as a person, and we'll overgive and overcompensate because we never was given those words that we're good enough, that we're beautiful, that we're pretty, that we deserve this, we deserve that. And so even when I was in bad relationships, my mother wouldn't say anything when I was in bad relationships. And, I would bring, my partner around, wouldn't say nothing until she hit the fan. And then it's like, okay, men do this, do that. It never was a consoling or the comforting or those mature words from your matriarch, from your mother, the matriarch of the family, to give you the wisdom in order to grow. And when I was in good relationships, healthy relationships, like I said with my soul connection, my ex that transitioned, she didn't like those guys. And they've all been extremely successful, and they treated me wonderful, and they were loyal, but she didn't like those guys she talked down on. And so I started to do a review of my life, of, my relationships, of how I interacted within these relationships. I also did a review of, my career and how I really saw my worth once my mother transitioned. And so some people may say, oh my God, like, wow. Yeah, if this really does happen to people. People really do have bad relationships with their mama. Like, everybody's relationship with their mama ain't peaches and cream and unicorns and gumdrops falling out of the sky. Like, some people have these tormenting relationships with their mother that they don't even understand. And so, and my sister's still going through it, and she'll be 52 this year, and she still has depression and trauma due to how my mother treated her, which was worse because she was here before I got here, 9 years, and a lot of the things that she saw and that occurred with her, are a little bit deeper than what I went through. And I came from a middle class. I went to private schools, y'all. I mean, my family wasn't bad. We weren't wealthy, but we were nice off. And so I come from a 2-parent household. My parents were together until my mother transitioned in 2020. And that's why I'm very close with my father. My father gave me that nurturing energy that compensated or tried to compensate for the lack of my mother. And so when my mother transitioned, I was able to see the trauma that she endured from her childhood, right? And I was able to see her as an 8-year-old little girl and some things that she went through and the energy that she was feeling. And I had to go through and start to heal our matriarchal mitochondrial DNA energy, so this doesn't continue to pass on to the next womb, to my niece, to my niece's 2 girls, to their children. I'm working to help heal that. And when I first recognized it within me, that's when I started to do the healing work for myself. And ladies, I know sometimes it may be difficult, but you have to remove yourself from a relationship with a man for a certain period of time and be by yourself, because a lot of things that's keeping you from moving forward or having a soul partnership, of having a marriage, if that's something you want, is due to the fact that you're still dealing with lack of love trauma. All right? And you have to love on yourself. So you'll hear, the self-love and everything has become popular, starting during the pandemic, or maybe a little bit before. A lot of self-love things you need to do for yourself. But and which is good. Everybody needs to do self-love. But part of self-love is healing from the trauma that you endured from the maternal energy that you had in your life that was really lacking the responsibility of giving you that nurturing energy or that feminine aspect of yourself and making you be overly masculine within your feminine energy that you're supposed to be, and there wasn't any balance. All right? So then it's hard for you to receive balance within a relationship and allow the man to be the masculine energy that he is supposed to be to lead and guide you, because you're wanting to be so much in control because you came from a controlling matriarchal energy, your mother, that didn't show love. Even on my mother's deathbed, I gave her a hug and I told her I loved her. And she couldn't even say it back. And that's how I knew, like, her movement in this realm was getting ready to end, and she was going to have to be recycled and come back and learn and show and give love, you know, and receive love. Because it's hard to give from an empty cup if she didn't receive it. Because my mother grew up in a household in which her stepfathers beat her. Her stepfather beat her, you know, and her stepfather beat my grandmother, you know. So it was a lot of violence in the home. And so when you grow up like that, of course, you are learning to protect yourself and you are kicking in some protection mechanisms. And it may be hard for you to give and receive love, even if it's to your children. And so just like the other day when I was talking about cultivating through the gestation phase of your child within your womb, there's a gestation phase with you being in your mother's womb. And if your mother's womb is toxic and tainted and is not loving and nurturing, then that energy is being passed off to you. And so it's passed off to us if you're watching this, because we're going to be the ones to transmute that energy. All right? And bring it to a higher frequency and not allow ourselves to sit in it. But we have to reflect on it and start looking at the way we move and why we do things the way that we do. And once we release that chain, this is the key part. Chain, because that's the chain. When I say chain, this is the ethereal umbilical cord. Almost got a little tongue tied. This is the ethereal umbilical cord that you have connected to your mother. And if that is toxic, then until you break or heal or transform, and you can do several things. You can break that chain, that ethereal umbilical cord, and you can ascend self. And you can work on self. That is possible. You can break it, ascend self, which is still ascend the bloodline, because self is the bloodline. You can keep the umbilical chain, just like I do, because my mother isn't here, and I'm ascending self, which directly, instantly works with her and the bloodline, her energy, which is going to help her ascend in her next lifetime. All right, so you can also do it that way, and then you can transmute that energy to a higher frequency. And you like, how do I transmute that energy? And that's when I said close off those relationships, start to work on self, dive deeper in self, and connect to force. And once you're connected to force is going to help you do the healing work. You can also go in on psilocybin mushrooms, plant medicine, ayahuasca, bufo, whatever you need to do in order to help you see that trauma, because sometimes we can't even see it. But when we go in on plant medicine, that's why we call it medicine, because it's really healing for the spiritual part of us that we cannot see, and allow us to release these layers of trauma that we packed on from parental issues, domestic violence relationships, bad female or same-sex relationships where you have best friends that just do you dirty, bad careers. Ooh, my truck is open. I didn't know it. Bad careers. And so I learned that once I let go and healed, and when I say let go of that trauma, and I healed that energy, and I transmuted that energy, I then saw manifestations in my life. Okay, and I know this video is starting to get a little bit long, but those who watch it will watch it. That's when my relationships that with people became healed, and I let go of toxic relationships. That's when manifestations and abundance came through. That's when I saw my family started opening up to spirituality. That's when my mother had to transition out of here because her energy was no longer needed because she wasn't willing to heal and love and raise her vibration. And like I said before, if we choose lower frequency and lower vibration, wait, close this up, y'all. My trunk just wide open. That's when we can start healing and healing ourselves when we transmute that energy. Okay, so yeah, that allows you to heal. Once you heal, transmute that energy and heal that bloodline, that etherical umbilical cord. That's when you'll see the release of the stagnation from that spell. And I'm calling it a spell because it's the words that have been spoken over your life. And so it is a spell that your mother did. And she didn't even realize that she was casting a spell on your life. But it's the spell that your mother put on your life that you are breaking, healing, or transmuting. Okay? You are doing that. When you recognize the healing, go in on plant medicine, transmute that energy, that's what's all occurring. You're breaking that spell. Okay? So I just wanted to share that with you on how to break that spell, what's going on with some of us in our lives, within our relationships, our careers, our lack of abundance. And of course, I'll leave you in peace and high frequencies.